Okay.
Thank you for staying with us. Now let's get the show on the road. I assure Nigerians that I will leave Nigeria a safer country at the end of my tenure in May 2023. That is attributed to the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, General Muhammadu Buhari. Of course, that has prompted all kinds of reactions. Oh, so you've been there for more than 7 years. You haven't been able to do anything. How come you're assuring us now that within 1 year you're going to do some kind of magic? Well, whether we are questioning what he said or not, what he said is welcome news to all of us. It's just that we have question marks after it because we're wondering how he's going to do it all in less than 1 year. We have specialists who are going to look at this with us this morning and tell us if they actually see a safer Nigeria ahead of us in the near future. It's my pleasure to welcome Colonel Yomi Dari, a security expert who is in the studio with us this morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me around.
And we also have a security analyst who is joining us via Zoom, Mr. Bayo Oluwake. Good morning, Mr. Oluwake.
Good morning, and thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. So, I think I'm going to do something unusual on this program this morning. I'm going to start with Mr. Oluwake. I'm going to start from Zoom.
I think we should start with let's start with Colonel Dari. He's the expert, right? If you don't mind, because I know that your question has been reserved for Mr. Oluwake, but let me ask you. When you heard, well, of course, the president was launching the appeal for the Armed Forces Remembrance Day, you know, and all of that. When you heard it, how did it sound to you? I'm going to leave Nigeria a safer country come 2023 if I leave office. How did it come across to you?
Thank you very much. Well, for me, I look at the issue as being subjective. Subjective in the sense that it depends on, what side of the divide you are and viewing this security situation. It's just like the soldier in the forefront. You cannot talk better about the experience there to him when you are, at the safer zone. So we all know what we experienced before this administration came into power. I mean, I remember saying in this studio that if we are not careful, you can even be hearing something happening outside the studio. I mean, maybe some people are coming to march on this place. But all that, stopped. There's no doubt that a lot has happened. But again, there's conspiracy theory. And of course, the political angle to it. We have, as it is today, APC is a government in power. And then, of course, we have the people who are juggling and trying to come into. So with everyone trying to say something, against the order. And of course, right now, the issue of hate speech is being, activated and saying that we must be very careful about our comments, such that we should address issues. Looking at the security situation in this country, we must also realize that the population and growth of Nigeria, say 10 years ago, cannot be compared to what we have today. I'm talking about demographic, in demography. So these are some of the things, as we evolve, as we develop, you have a lot of things to contend with. Please mark my words. I am not saying that everything is okay, but I think that there's still light at the end of the tunnel.
That is, if the tunnel is not vandalized. Well, the statement of the president raised the question of whether or not the president himself thinks Nigeria is vulnerable at this time. I mean, you have cited a number of things. I mean, there are those who would also, you know, kindly or fairly remember that things may not be as, at least the reporting of insecurity is not as bad as it used to be. We understand that a number of things are always going on. You know, the police, all security agencies doing one thing or the other to ensure safety of Nigerians and all of that. So, but I'm asking is especially concerning the statement of the president. What made the president to say that in the first place? I know we'll be going to our Zoom guest shortly, but I just want to ask, what do you think made the president to say that? Is it that the president himself feels that Nigerians don't feel safe, or is it that he has doubts that, you know, that people are satisfied with the level of insecurity? I don't know what you make of it from, I mean, talking from a military perspective.
Well, if I have to answer your question directly, which I'm really going to do right now, you see, there's what you call, you know, leadership. And I believe at this point in time that the president is probably, you know, remembering and wearing his cap of leadership, you know, the doctrine of leadership, because you must continue, you know, to ensure, I mean, to assure the followers, your followers, that look, you know, I'll be there for you and things will get better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Loake, the president assures us that things are going to change in the near future. And this is, we're approaching the end of November. Christmas is coming, and you know our way of life in Nigeria. We like to move around at Christmas and spend Christmas with our families. From the president's assurances, do you think that we should take his word for it and move around with confidence over the festive period, which is almost upon us?
Well, I think that the president is in a phase where he is beginning to think of his legacy. And one cardinal point for him of free and fair elections and being able to successfully midwife another successful transition to his successor. And of course, to be able to do that, there must be security. We need security to be able to have political campaigns, and we also need security to be able to go and vote, and of course to get the voting process to be conclusive. So if you look at it from that standpoint, I would say yes, we can take his word for it, because without security there will not be a successful transition, and delivering a successful transition now will be critical for assuring the legacy of President Buhari.
Mr. Loake, sorry, you are a...
just like to add to that, we will see some concrete steps being taken to back up the assurance that the president has given in order to bolster confidence amongst the population.
Yeah, Mr. Loake, you are a security analyst. From all that you see, do you think that we can afford to take those words for granted? From all your analysis, from all the things you see with elections coming and everything?
I think so, because, for example, the elections that we are going to have, usually when elections are forthcoming, you see the police doubling up their acts. In a lighter mood, I always say that I hardly see police helicopters, but when elections are around the corner, you see police helicopters in the sky. So the police normally increase their surveillance, their deployments, and so on and so forth, when elections are approaching. And also when we have a transition from one year to another. So now we're going from 2020 to 2023. We're going to have a Christmas, New Year. We know the state of security as well. But like I said earlier, that what will be interesting and instructive will be for us to see certain concrete steps being taken. And if you allow me, I would just like to quickly make some suggestions as to the kind of concrete steps that we need to be taken.
But before you get to the suggestions, just a second, Mr. Aluwake, before you get to the suggestions, one of the questions that naturally comes to me is, exactly what are we talking about here when we talk about an unsafe environment or insecurity? Gratifyingly, we're not having cases of kidnapping in the quantum that we used to have it, almost every month or almost every week or almost every 2 weeks at some point. That's generally tapered down. The kind of banditry that we were having, farmer herdsmen clashes, thankfully we are not getting that now, at least not as much as we used to have it. Any case of it is bad enough, but thankfully not as bad as it used to be. So perhaps there are dimensions of insecurity that we are not seeing right now, because the most vulnerable sets of people, when we talk about insecurity, are not in the urban areas of the country. They are in the hinterlands. They are in the rural areas. So do you think we have a good grasp of the real issues when we talk about insecurity, especially in those areas?
I lost you for most of the time because of the connection.
Okay.
But I think I got some of the points you're trying to make. That you suggested that we might have seen some slight reduction in cases of banditry and the kidnappings.
But the question,
if I got that correctly,
yes.
And this we can easily attribute to the renewed onslaught of air assets. But there are certain things that I feel, especially to protect people in rural communities and in what you might call ungoverned spaces. Because in the cities, of course, you see the deployment of security forces. But when you drive, we go out of the cities, either on the highways, in the hinterland, in the rural communities, such deployments may not be as strong as they should be.
Okay.
I think we should recognize something, which is that by the admission of the police itself, we have an argument. We have roughly 400,000 police officers. Okay.
Well, we need to work on that connection, Mr. Aluwake.
Carrying out what is called VIP duties. They are tied from the time of President Obasanjo. I remember President Obasanjo gave instructions twice or thrice to withdraw all those police officers. Up till as we are speaking now, no government since 1999 has been able to withdraw those police officers. So my position is that if we've not been able to withdraw these police officers to 206 million people, that is absolutely inadequate. And that is indicative of the lapses and the gaps that we see in our security landscape. So for me, it's better to just accept that we are going to have to keep 150,000 police officers to either political appointees or highly exposed, additional 150,000 to replace them. And then to get those to whom these 150,000 have been deployed to pay.
Okay, well,
services.
We'll try to work on the audio, Mr. Aluwake, so that we can hear you better. And certainly this looks like a network issue. But we'll try to work on that and hopefully, get you back and have clearer audio for those very valid contributions that you're making. Okanodare, I mean, you heard some of the issues that he has raised. One can say, to borrow one of the most popular words in the course of the week, insecurity is multidimensional. I've heard that word quite a number of times this week, and so it's become like that now. We started by chatting around the revelation from the federal government that Nigerians, 133 million Nigerians, are living in what they call multidimensional poverty. And security experts such as yourself have often told us that poverty is an enabler of insecurity. So, if the president says he wants to leave the country safer, what does that suggest to you? In the light of the fact that I don't know how we can pull 100 million Nigerians out of poverty by May next year.
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, I think the president's statement is highly subjective, and another angle is looking at it from, the perspective of poverty, getting the majority out of poverty. For me, I think it's just work in progress, and there's a lot that needs to be done. Well, again, you see, some of these things, when it comes to security, some of these things are not maybe like the efforts, the things the government is working on. They're not things that you come out in the public, to discuss. So I'd like to, concede it to the president that something is really being worked out, especially, at the National Security Council level.
But the president had said something more than once, quite a few times, that security agencies need to work a lot together.
Yeah.
That integration, we seem to have a tough time getting that done. It would seem like at the top, security agencies, they cooperate, they collaborate, they talk in the control rooms, command centers, and all of that. The military talk with the police, the army, navy, and all of that. NSCDC, the Nigerian Legion, all of them talk. Immigration, customs, NDLEA, FRSC, they all talk because they are all security agencies, as we have military and paramilitary, as we have been told. But then it would seem like the information about collaboration does not always drill down to the lowest levels. We have heard a top military officer say, I can't remember who in particular now, say that when it comes to security, domestically, the police takes the forefront. But in peculiar cases, the military will have to be a little, stronger, soften the situation before bringing back the police into it. So that collaboration thing, which the president often talks about, how do you see it helping to do exactly what the president has done, in the light of the fact that he has said it more than once that there is a need for that collaboration, for that integration, but it doesn't seem to happen as effectively?
Yeah, well, it's a common knowledge, and it still behoves on the various security organizations to indoctrinate, their men. Okay, like you rightly identified, at the top, yes, I mean, the commissioners of police, the commanders of units, they meet together, especially at the state level, where you have both top men being members of the State Security Committee or Security Council. Okay, they meet, but unfortunately, these things don't, percolate, they don't go down, and that's what we really need to work on. We really need to work on.
What do you think makes that happen?
We've had cases. Yes, it's again, you find some kind of rivalry. You've had cases. Thank God, lately we haven't recorded much. You've had cases. You remember there was one that happened at the Surulere Police Division, where soldiers went there and then burnt down, the whole place. And, it started just between other ranks, the lower cadre. So there's needs to work hard on the lower cadre, You really need to work hard on the lower cadre. And you see, it's very, very clear. Like you also rightly identified, internal security is the ball game of the police. Okay? And it's only when the police become overwhelmed that they call in the military. But once there's an issue, and of course there's what you call internal security operations. They do rehearsals, trainings together. Okay, they do trainings together. They simulate crisis. Simulate crisis with people in one corner creating chaos, and then the police, they go there, they try to quell it, and then the police, they get overwhelmed, and then right there the police commander is reporting to his headquarters, and the headquarters there is calling on the military commander. Well, most times the military, they are already on standby to come in. So that is the drill. But again, that was then, because where we are now, things have moved. Even the bandits, the insurgents, the criminals, they are also getting sophisticated. So those kind of training, those exercises are becoming kind of elementary. So they need to move further, to move ahead. So in most cases, you even find out that the police, they don't even show their faces. And then the army just goes in there. And for me, it's a big challenge because it's affecting a lot. Ordinarily, the military should be, outside of all this. The military should be training, and coordinating at higher levels, But right now, what you find is the military, at roadblocks, And for me, again, that has its own,
downside.
Downside. You just start wondering. You travel on the highway, you see a very long, endless queue. What is going on here? Of course, I mean, the boys are just there and looking at the people and telling who they wish to pass. I mean, because once the criminals come around, they won't even go through those queues. They probably come in,
blast their way through. Guns blazing. But Colonel, let me take you back a little bit to the connection between poverty and criminality or insecurity. Research has shown us, the latest research from
the federal government.
From the federal government says that 133 million people have been plunged into poverty. As a result of poverty, there will be increased criminality, obviously, because people are hungry, and many of them, we have seen many criminals confess, it's not that I wanted to do it, but I was hungry. Are we not going to get more criminals in a situation like this, when more than half the population is living in abject poverty?
Yeah, that's a reasonable analysis, But again, we are looking at a situation where, people know the obvious result of criminality. Okay, the obvious results of criminality. So, I mean, you have to try as much as possible not to be involved in criminality. You have to make a conscious effort, okay? And then everything boils down again to values, to home bringing. You find people in this same climb that will tell you that rather than steal, I will accept to be poor, rather than just drag the name of my family into the mud. I will, rather remain poor. But even at that, even people that are not even suffering poverty, the records have shown that they've been involved in serious crimes. I don't want to start mentioning names. Even people from supposedly well-to-do families or homes, and then the greed, the human nature thing. You just want to. It's just like the other guy who who was employed as a driver, and then at the end of the day, started kidnapped his master's award, or wife or son, and then
certainly something very, very concerning. But
yes,
I don't even know where to begin. You wanted to ask Mr. Loake a question.
Yes, Mr. Loake, what are your thoughts about 133 million people, that is more than half of our population, living in poverty? Is that not going to increase our security problems?
Definitely, poverty contributes significantly to the the stability of the country in many respects. Of course, if it does trigger an imbalance in the socioeconomic system, triggering poverty or underemployment, and so on and so forth. In our environment, there are a lot of very clear indicators that we were heading in this direction. First of all, if you look at the industrial capacity in the country and we check how many of our factories are actually operating at an optimum level, we have, I don't know what the capacity utilization is now with the factories, but I assume, if I would make an intelligent guess, probably 45% on the average, and maybe at the very best for some companies who probably have most of their raw materials in the country, maybe 50-55%. But I think generally it's about 45%. And then only few people are employed, of course, in that sector. The bulk of our population are still farmers. They are not farmers, they are fishermen. Now, if they are farmers, we know what the security situation has caused for the breadbasket of the country, the middle belt and the north. So it's very, very clear, that the negative economic indicators and situation has, of course, triggered this frightening level of poverty that you were referring to at the beginning of the program. I think citing a total of about 133 million Nigerians now in that bracket. And drastic measures really need to be taken from now, because otherwise the efforts of the security agencies to contain the threats to the country will be undermined, if there's no corresponding effort to significantly reduce the poverty. And I think this is where those who are campaigning for political office in the next dispensation need to be taken to task in very graphic terms as to what exactly they want to do. Because whether we like it or not, the administration of President Buhari is on its way out. And therefore, many Nigerians would rather now be looking at those who are aspiring to come in. And this is when we need to ask questions about what they need to do to redress the significant challenge we have.
Well, Mr. Loake, you wanted to make some suggestions earlier about what we need to do to towards a safer Nigeria. What are your thoughts? I know that you suggested earlier, that we need to first of all withdraw police. Should I say orderlies from some VIPs. And that, according to you, hasn't been done over the past how many administrations since 1999? That's one. What are your other considerations, things we need to do urgently if by 2023 May, the president will be leaving a safer Nigeria as he promised?
Thank you very much. The threats we have been facing in Nigeria are largely internal. They are not external. Although there are external there could be external dimensions, but the threats have been largely internal. And because they've been largely internal, the security agencies that really are constitutionally primed to deal with these internal threats are number one, the DSS, and number two, the police. Now, this administration of President Buhari has done a lot to re-equip the armed forces and to increase the number of the armed forces. But I feel that a lot should be done to do the same thing for the police and the DSS. Do we have enough police officers? We know we don't have. The police mobile force, for example, is designed to deal with situations beyond normal law enforcement. And we saw, for example, during EndSARS, I hardly saw the police mobile force anywhere. Now, the population of Nigeria has almost, it's still 206 million, like we said. Is the police mobile force, the way it is presently constituted, with the orientation that it has, with the number of personnel that it has, with the equipment that it has, designed to respond to this threat? Because if we don't address this problem, we will keep deploying the army. And we should not be deploying the army to deal with things like EndSARS and all those kind of situations. It should be the regular law enforcement or the police mobile force. Number two, we've invested a lot of money on the rail network, but we have not invested money in upgrading the Nigeria Police Railway Command. Because the Nigeria Police Railway Command is designed to provide security for the entire rail system in the country. It's a specialized unit. I have not seen from open sources analysis anything being done to upgrade the Nigerian Railway Mobile Command. Nigerian Railway Police Command. We cannot be asking the Nigerian Air Force to patrol railway tracks. The Nigerian Air Force is a combat service. They can do this as a temporary measure, but we need the Police Railway Command as a matter of urgency to be revamped so that the rail systems can work again. Then, of course, the Nigerian Police Maintenance Division. If the police are acquiring drones, as I expect them to be doing, to reduce the cost of putting helicopters in the sky, and so on and so forth. Who are the guys who will maintain those drones? Okay, so if the police maintenance division is not strong enough, we are not going anywhere. And by the way, those who advocate state police should understand that if the federal police cannot work, it is going to be difficult for state police to work because the mental attitude, the orientation, and the values are the same. So the equipment that we give to the police must last the lifespan of those equipment. If they will be breaking down every 3 months, every 6 months, I don't see how a state police force with the same orientation and values will do better than the federal police that we have now. So for me, those are the critical areas that this outgoing administration should be addressing. Police mobile force, Nigeria Police Railway Command, and the Police Maintenance Division. And I think more power should be given to the Inspector General. There should be clarity in the powers of the Inspector General of Police, the Police Service Commission, and the other units that provide oversight for the police in a way that not hamper the Inspector General from carrying out his function. And then the Department of State Services, because it's a secret service, in open sources we can't analyze its equipment holding and its personnel level and all of that. But I suspect that we have not invested as much as we should in the Department of State Services. If they cannot get intelligence, and by the way, the NSA, the National Security Advisor, just a day or two ago at the National Assembly, when he was defending the budget of his office, also alluded to the significance of intelligence. And that is the job of the DSS, at least as far as domestic intelligence is concerned. Well, so this outgoing administration should do a lot.
Well, we've heard a lot about intelligence, that we are told that we have intelligence officers in all the local governments in the country. How well the intelligence they gather are used, perhaps that's another conversation. But I think Colonel Dare has some responses to some of the issues that you have raised. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I do agree with my brother, Mr. Oloake, on most of the issues that he raised, that, you know, people should be allowed, you know, to concentrate and, you know, manage themselves. And especially on the part of the police. I think it's common knowledge that right now, the police have not been able to resolve, you know, the issue on recruitment between the Inspector General of Police Office and the Police Commission. So that's still hanging there. And Nigerians are suffering. You know, so what are we talking about here?
He also raised the issue of giving more powers to the IG.
Yes. On that note, I think I beg to disagree, you know, a little bit here, because I am an advocate of state police. I think we should really give the state policing a teeth, you know, because as far as
you heard the concern he raised about, you know, constituting state police with the same mentality of the federal police that we have.
Yeah. It has to be a different mentality. And that is why this recruitment exercise must take place. It has to be a different mentality.
But the president doesn't really agree to state police at the point.
Well, the president doesn't have to agree.
He doesn't have a say.
The president doesn't have to agree. You know,
so I mean, if it's going to be in the constitution, he has to agree.
Well, the people have a right to review the constitution, and as we speak, the people are ready to vote in another president. Okay.
We're going to have to start all over again.
Yes, please.
What would you say to those who say that criminality is rife because more likely than not, you're not going to get caught if you commit a crime in Nigeria?
I think I won't, you know, subscribe to that, in the sense that we need to really also step up, you know, the law enforcement and then the judicial system.
But until we do that,
yes,
criminals are getting away with crime.
Well, not all criminals, but many
are getting away with crime.
And well, when we now even talk about the people getting away with crime, let's face it, it is the people who are stealing the billions.
Okay.
The question you want to ask is which people? But let me ask Mr. Oluwake something. Well, you talked about local government system the other time. I know that you work you've worked in your long years of in doing what you do in security and all of that with people in underprivileged people all over the world. But speak to the case in Nigeria. How significant is that in the quest for a safer Nigeria? The people in the lower rung of the ladder, you've talked about what the federal government needs to do. Is there a role for the people themselves in ensuring a safer Nigeria? Because we can't leave it all to the federal government, can we?
Can you do that in 1 minute, please?
If I got you, say, what should we now as citizens do?
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
Okay.
1 minute.
Just before I do that, let me just assure Colonel Are that I am in favor of state police. The point I was making was that we as Nigerians, the value and the orientation which affects our conduct, for example, inability to maintain equipment and services. If the federal police is not able to maintain equipment and services, they are Nigerians. So how would the state police, who are also Nigerians, have a better maintenance culture? So I was just raising that point to say that if we don't deal with those issues, even the state police will find it difficult to function. That's just the point I was making. But I'm for state police. Now, for Nigerians, especially as we go towards the Unitide, We are often not security conscious, and this is very unfortunate because there's no way that the security agency of any country is going to be able to work efficiently without the cooperation and support of its population. Let me give a very basic example. If you hire someone to work in your house, many Nigerians don't know where this person has come from. You have a guard in your house, you have a house help who somebody brought in from Benin Republic. You know the name is Genevieve. That's all you know. You don't know the surname. You don't know the address. There's no guarantor. Okay? And then whoever brought this person to you shows up only once a year. And then this person steals something from your house. And then you go to the police, you have no passport photograph, you have no other information whatsoever, and you expect the police to find this person. So we as Nigerians must be security conscious. Whoever we are admitting and hiring to work in our premises, we must have information, comprehensive information on such people. We must be aware of our environment. Strange faces in our environment, we need to be able to raise the alarm. We need to know who to call and when to call, and to do it immediately. And not just ignore those things that are unusual, which happens around us. And we need to comply with advisories. Many people don't comply with advisories. There are parts of the country today where it is not still safe to travel at night. Even before banditry became bad, maybe because there's a sharp bend or whatever, and the Road Safety Commission or the police issues travel advisories. People don't respect them. They tell you don't travel beyond 6 p.m., don't travel beyond 7 p.m. They don't respect them. So we need to begin to comply with these things, and it will help to reduce our exposure to insecurity.
Okay. Mr. Bayo Oluwake, I take it that even though earlier in the course of this discussion you had said that it was safe for us to travel and we should take the president's word for it, but you are now putting some caveats to that advice. That's the way I'm reading this. So that was Mr. Bayo Oluwake, security analyst, who joined us via Zoom, and we had in the studio Colonel Yomi Dari, who is a security expert. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
I thought you were going to take my last words.
Unfortunately,
we run completely out of time. I'm sorry about that.
Okay,
thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much.
Sunrise will return in just a moment with another interesting discussion. Please join us.